I want to talk about sales because I think it's so important as a podcaster. As a podcaster, you are starting your own business. That is what you're doing. And the podcast is a marketing and a relationship builder and a brand builder. It's a lot of different things. But again, for most of us, we're not going to make a meaningful amount of money with ads or sponsorships or affiliates. Most of us just won't. Podcast Growth Nation, welcome back to another episode of Podcast Growth University, where we talk all things podcasting all the time. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode number 93. It's not about the one thing that makes the difference. It's about all the little things that make the difference. I saw a really powerful quote today. It was about fitness, but it said the more specific a piece of advice is, the higher probability of it being incorrect. And I was thinking to myself, that's probably pretty accurate in most things, podcasting probably included. Today, for episode number 94, Google Podcasts is dying. What does that mean for you? So as of April 4th, I believe it was April 4th, 7 days ago, Google Podcasts is going away. And for us, I don't know what your stats are. You'd have to look at your provider, your host. But for us, I think Google Podcasts was like 4% or less than 4% of listens. So it's not a huge deal. This is, I think, a positive. And the reason I think this is a positive is because if you are not doing video, this is extra necessity for you to do video. If you are doing video, there's a way that you can make your podcast an actual podcast on YouTube. Now, a couple other things you can do. I'm pretty sure, I don't know if it's still possible. I think it is. I'm pretty sure you can just connect your RSS feed to YouTube and YouTube Music, and it will automatically upload all of the stuff you have. But here's the problem. Then you're just going to have audio files on YouTube or YouTube, I guess YouTube Music, so it doesn't really matter. That's not the approach I want to take. I would much rather take the video, put it up on YouTube, and then make a playlist, and then you can make the playlist a podcast. So you can do both. I don't see why you couldn't do YouTube Music audio and then YouTube video. But I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal unless you are having a tremendous amount of listeners coming through Google Podcasts, which I don't think most people are. If I look at the data for all the clients we have, not a lot of people are doing that. Right now, it's Apple and Spotify. Those are really the top two that most people are getting listens on. So Google Podcasts is dying. What does that mean for you? Well, you're going to want to most likely get on either YouTube Music or YouTube. And for YouTube, all you have to do is go on YouTube, create a new playlist, and then you can label that playlist as a podcast. And then every time you upload a video, just put it on that playlist, and then boom, right? You have a video podcast now. That's something I would suggest doing. I haven't looked into, full disclosure, I haven't looked into YouTube Music yet, but it's probably something I will do for this show and for our other show, just for the audio portion. But we're already on YouTube. If you're already on YouTube, it's probably easy enough just to go through all the videos that you've uploaded and then just add them all to a podcast playlist. So I did it for NLU, Next Level University, with 1,600 episodes, and I think it only took me like 25 minutes, because you can do 50 at a time, add to playlist, 50 at a time, add to playlist. So I did that 30 times, and all the episodes are now on that playlist. So it probably doesn't mean a ton for you, would be my guess, unless you were like super specific on promoting Google Podcast and focusing on it. But I've talked to a lot of people, and most people, they were on Google Podcasts because their provider made it easy for them to get on there, but they didn't really do much else with it. So I would say it's probably not that big of a deal. But if you're not on video, now is a really good time for you to get on video, because YouTube is actually helping with podcasting, which is different. And then I would start looking into YouTube Music as well, because there's an audience there for sure. Oftentimes when changes like this happen, they kind of suck in the moment and they can be scary in the moment, but it usually creates some layer of necessity for us to do something different. So that is kind of the state of the union on that. What does it mean for you? You can get creative and you can start doing video if you're not. Or you can easily create a podcast playlist on YouTube. Anything else? Maybe you already did this. I don't think you can do it anymore. I should have done this episode earlier. It was in the queue and I pushed it back and I probably should have done it. I probably should have done it 2 or 3 weeks ago. So that's on me. And I take full ownership for that. But you were able to potentially take your subscribers and push them to another platform. Here's the thing. I know most of us probably didn't have that many subscribers on Google Podcasts. Maybe you did. I don't know. But unless you were hyper-focused on it, you were just getting crossover listens on that. So don't obsess over it. It's another one of those things where we did the episode about the Apple update affecting your listens. And it's affected our listens. It's affected, I would say, 90% of our clients' listens. But now you actually have the truth of how many listeners you have and how many listens you're actually getting because things are real. Yeah, it sucks to see the numbers might be lower than they were before, but it's almost like if somebody put $1 million in your bank account, but it was never really yours, and then they took the $1 million out of the bank account, that number that's still left was the real number the whole time. That's kind of what happened. We just didn't know that somebody was putting money in our bank account, for lack of better phrasing.
Hey, I wanted to give my experience working with Kevin and the rest of the Next Level University team. It has been such a seamless relationship. He is so easy to work with, Kevin, and he gives you all the information you need, but doesn't overwhelm you. He's also meets you where you're at. So whatever you want to do, he'll make it work. And it's just, there's no stress, there's no drama. And everybody else that I've worked with has been patient with me because I am not technologically savvy. So they've been helpful and patient and just encouraging. And it's just been a fantastic experience. I highly, highly recommend working with them.
So I wouldn't obsess over it too much for Google Podcasts, but use it as a necessity. Use it as a necessity to do something different. Use it as a necessity to try something new. If you haven't been on video, get on video. If you haven't been uploading video to YouTube, upload video to YouTube. Why not? Obviously, yes, it can be more expensive and all that, but I'm saying if you have just been putting it off because maybe you're afraid of getting in the camera, use this, getting on camera, use this as a necessity. Maybe you have been saying, well, my backdrop isn't good enough yet. Trust me, your backdrop's fine. Don't worry about it. Don't overthink it. Keep it simple. Start small. I would rather you start with a crappy backdrop than wait until you have a perfect one and then lose the passion between where you are now and eventually where that perfect backdrop is, because then the show's not going to exist. And we don't want that. That's one of the reasons so many podcasts end up quote unquote failing, because we wait too long. We wait too long to do the things that we want to do because we say, well, I'm not big enough yet, or my setup's not right, or I don't have big enough guests, or whatever it is. And a lot of it is internal. A lot of the reasons people quit is internal, not external. It's that internal stuff of, well, who wants to listen to me anyway, and all that stuff. So I guess the takeaway, Google Podcast is dead at this point. It's gone. What does that mean for you? Probably not a heck of a lot, honestly. I would use it as a necessity. Check out YouTube Music and check out YouTube. That would be the big two takeaways from this episode. Obviously, this episode is going to be a shorter one. I am super excited to do next week's episode. So next week's episode, we're going to do the 5 steps to get really good at sales. You might be thinking, okay, why are we talking about sales on a podcast about podcasting? Because most of us are going to have to learn it if we really want to be successful. The podcasts that I work with that become the most successful are usually the ones who are having one-on-one conversations and that lead to sales. And that's just one of the things that a lot of us are afraid to do. I want to talk about sales because I think it's so important as a podcaster. As a podcaster, you are starting your own business. That is what you're doing. And the podcast is a marketing and a relationship builder and a brand builder. It's a lot of different things. But again, for most of us, we're not going to make a meaningful amount of money with ads or sponsorships or affiliates. Most of us just won't. Not enough, most likely, to quit your job, right? Let's say you're making $75,000 a year at your job. it's going to be really hard to make $75,000 a year off of ad sponsorships and affiliates. But if you get creative and you understand sales and you understand business at a deeper level, that's when things really, really can start to compound. So I'm excited to do that episode. If you have a negative relationship with sales, just tune in and just try to get through it. Again, my sales philosophy is very different than maybe a lot that you've heard before. I am very, very simple when it comes to that. I don't guilt people, none of that. That's not how I do sales. For me, sales is helping. So the 5 steps to get really good at helping and then getting paid for helping. That's really all it is. Sales is kind of a negative term because you go to the car dealership and it's brutal. Or maybe you go to the mall and there's people at the kiosk trying to get to you. I don't know if people go to the malls anymore, but you've probably been impacted by somebody negatively via sales. And that's how a relationship builds. And if you think it's negative to do, or it's dirty, or it's sleazy, or whatever it is, then we're going to try to rebuild that. We'll try to rebuild that in the next episode. So next week, the 5 steps to get really good at sales. I will have my link in the show notes, as always, for a free 30-minute podcast breakthrough session. We can talk about whatever you want. We can talk about getting different guests, becoming more comfortable on camera, whatever you want to do. I am happy to spend 30 minutes doing a deep dive on it, and I guarantee you will leave with more than you came with. That is always my goal. Always, always, always. I start every single one off, except I don't think I did this on the last one, because I knew the person pretty well. Based on where you are and where you want to get to, what do you believe is the most valuable use of our time together today? I will literally ask you where you want to take the session, and then we'll go from there. Some people say, I don't know. Cool. I have an idea. All right, I've already drawn it on the whiteboard. Let's do it. Other people say, yeah, these are the 6 questions I have. We hammer them. Sometimes it's just a conversation. You never know what's going to come. So be courageous, be brave, and book it if you are interested. I hope the listens are increasing. I hope your belief is increasing. When you interview a guest, when you're on another show, when you're doing a solo episode, I hope you believe in yourself more than you did 95 episodes ago, 94 episodes ago, or 2 weeks ago when you first tuned in, or yesterday when you heard the first episode, whatever. I hope you're feeling more confident, because that is one of the best things about podcasting. Yes, you get to impact people and they hear you all over the world. Awesome. But I'm telling you, podcasting is going to do more for you than it's going to do for any of your amazing listeners. And I am living proof of that. A lot of episodes and a lot of listens and a lot of listeners and all that happy jazz, but our podcast and my journey has helped me more than anyone, and I am eternally grateful for that. Until next week, keep on crushing it, keep on podcasting, and we will talk to you